Oh, Lordy. Troubles with dogs. What's up, dog? All right, go get them. Go get them. Go get the squirrels. Go get them. Go get them. Go get them. Lordy, trouble so hard. Lordy, troubles with dogs. Don't nobody know my trouble with dogs. Don't nobody know my trouble with dogs. Lordy, is Heiner here? It's Heiner. Hello, is it Heiner? Hello.
cual cambia mi memoria de manera instantánea y que me da deseos, nuevos pensamientos que parecen llegar de ningún sitio. Y es de esta manera que una teoría científica permite, por fin, explicar.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hello, hello, mi amigo. ¿Qué pasa? Auf Wiedersehen.
I only know El Condor pasa. And trabajo mucho, gana nada. I was listening to a guy from France and Spain. Amanda was recommending me too. It sounded very interesting, but I'm too bad with Spanish and French. But it's good to see you.
Moi aussi. Yo también.
Yo también. I wanted to have a nap now, but then it was 5 and I looked at the wrong time to the watch. No, we have Berlinale, so we are running in and out. A friend is with me at my place. And we
What is Berlinale?
And we just came from an extended breakfast.
Fantastic. What time is it?
It is 17 hours, 5 in the afternoon.
Awesome. Break fast.
And yours, it's 10 or 11. What is your time?
Not even, it's 8 a.m. It's the morning time.
Incredible. How can you get up so early?
I don't know. I went to bed very early. I was trying to, this is late for me. I woke up at 6:30, so that was late. It's
That's
late
normally
for me,
the time I go to bed.
You're a vampire. What are you going to do? Have you bitten anyone lately?
Me?
Yes, you. Have you bitten anybody? I'm calling you a vampire because you in the nights and then you go to bed when the day comes.
I told you, we have Berlinale. So all the film freaks are in town. And we screened with Jörg, our own film. I was just with regisseur from Paris and Jörg. And I think Jörg is now sleeping. I might want to introduce you later. But I think he's dashing out.
How are you enjoying these creative movie-making storyteller people?
Some I do, some I don't. I think the whole genre is really turning apart. The whole finance structure of Berlinale or Cannes, whatever, is apart. Because nobody is going to a cinema anymore. Everybody has seen the film before. And so the whole communication and movie industry is really in turmoil as far as I can see it.
Really, I don't see that from this side of the world.
Well, our friend from Edwin, he is from San Francisco. He's in all this Hollywood and whatever maze all his life. Maybe we make another session at the end of the Berlinale, which is end of next week. And then we can discuss futures and fantasies or films or whatever, because that would be directly linking in, and that would be directly linking into World Futures Day, March 1st.
Okay. Well, I just got all the equipment to make movies, so I love storytelling. I love it.
So his name is Edwin. He is somehow one of the incubators of storytelling from California. I will introduce you.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning. Just doing
You.
invitations.
I like that you do it right at that time. It's good for people all over the world to get the ping. I think we're making music. I don't know what that is, but that sounded like music.
This is how I make coffee. So you see, I boil milk and then steam it, whirl it a little to have cream, and
What do you
then to
think of
put
that,
chocolate
Doug?
to it, and coffee and pepper.
It's a German
that's
press.
like gold milk, something like fermentation or whatever is going on there. But I put the sound off because it's not very nice music.
Am I frozen?
No. Sam, I don't know whether you're on or not, but if you want to make me host, that would be wunderbar. And Josh, I think we lost you. Hello, dog. We lost Josh. We're waiting for Josh to come back. Josh, are you back? I see Sam is creating co-hosts. Josh, you're back. Now the problem is that the former you is the one that Sam made co-host. Heiner, are you there and listening? It looks like Sam made you a co-host. Could you make me a co-host?
Well, this is a nightmare because it's on a computer that I just turned off. Okay. Sorry, I was switching over to my iPad and I turned it off and it looks like it's still on, but the power is off on the computer. So I don't know how to turn it back on that.
Okay, my control panel says Sam Hahn is host.
Yeah.
And Joshua Bridge is co-host. And I'm also
Correct.
co-host.
Yeah, can you make
why should I be able to make you should I make you co-host?
Well, actually, you could make me co-host or host, either or.
I can try.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be host to make someone else host.
If I'm co-host, I cannot make you host.
You can't make me co-host?
No, I'm trying.
Okay.
And I'm doing it in my room all the time, but it doesn't allow me here on this panel. I think only Sam can do it. Who is admin or organizer?
Well, Sam is the room host. Usually, I'm the organizer, and usually he makes me host on arrival.
And who is the admin allowing someone to be a host?
That's Sam.
Okay, so
this is his room.
Only Sam is able to do so.
Oh, there he did. Okay, he did it.
You're lucky, man. You're very lucky.
There we go. What, Josh? Did you do it? Okay, Josh, you've got 2 instances. Or which one are you?
That's a great question. I am the one with my face. I don't know. They both are exactly the same. Just knock me both off. I'll come back in. Just knock me both off.
It doesn't look as a co-host.
I'm gonna leave the meeting and then knock the other one.
There we go. Okay, and then he'll come back. And then we'll get to right proper unblocking. So that sounded like quite a production. Can you repeat that, Heiner, in terms of your coffee? What were the steps?
I spoke about admins and hosts and co-hosts. Did you mean that?
No, I want to know how you made your coffee.
Oh, this is secret. I mean, that's like Coca-Cola. They keep it as a trade secret for hundreds of years. Now, what I do, I learned from people making coffee that I boil milk, but only 60 or 70 degree, and then I steam it with this like this, whirling it to make it like cream.
Right.
And then I take some pepper, some cacao, and some coffee to it, and it should somehow ferment or whatever the word is. I was told if you do it this way, it's even better than these automated machines because they steam too fast and then the milk has not really enough time to mingle up with all these nice ingredients.
Got it.
But I have to bring the coffee now to my friend. I'm back in a moment.
Okay.
Are you still signaling, Doug?
No, I'm all done.
Okay.
We can
Saying
just,
hello to Dove. Hello, Dove.
As soon as Heiner gets back, we can do some formal check-ins.
Oh, formalities. Really? We got to do formalities again, Doug? Oh,
Yeah,
God. Formalities.
we're gonna do some
Oh.
formal check-ins, and we're gonna do a solicitation round for blocks. We're actually gonna do blocks today.
Cool. Well, you missed me singing the song, "Oh Lordy, troubles with dogs. Oh Lordy, my troubles with dogs. Don't nobody know my trouble with dogs.
Don't nobody know my
Trouble with dogs."
I got a dog that looks just like that, but smaller.
Oh, maybe one can eat the other one or something. I don't know.
I don't know. They're whipper smart, those dogs are.
I thought so until this morning. She came right by the outhouse, didn't smell me in the outhouse, went to the front door and started scratching where she thought I was. And I had to call her over and say, "No, I'm in here. Can't you smell me? Or I thought you were a super smell dog. Come on." No, they're really smart. They're ridiculously smart. I can't believe how it's too smart. It's
Yep.
freaky smart. She knows we're talking about her. That's how smart she is. Oh, I'm not awake. I'm going to keep drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, try to wake up.
You can do that. Actually, while you're at it, I'm going to grab a cup since Heiner isn't back.
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Dove, did you see Heiner's contraption up there? Did you come in for that?
No, not yet.
He's hand whisking his coffee. Yeah, he had a egg beater, and he was egg beating his coffee with cacao. And, yeah,
like that. There is.
He's serious about it. Yeah, he's serious about his concoction. He's got a whole method to his madness.
Madness usually does.
Well, it's like
Yeah,
gold milk. Maybe you know gold milk. You take curcuma and pepper, and you take ginger. Ginger honey is best. And then you make something what some cultures call gold milk. It is milk and it looks like gold. It's also supposed to be healthy. So when we meet next time, I bring and serve gold milk.
Turmeric, pepper, and ginger.
Yes, very important.
And honey.
Honey.
And honey.
And curcuma.
The pepper is the activator for the turmeric.
Yes.
Correct.
Very nice.
Curcuma is very important.
Nice concoction. What is curcuma? Sounds like a puma's cousin. What is a curcuma?
You don't know?
No.
I can show you, and then we have to look.
Is it a root? Okay. I'll try to spell it.
Curcuma. Could that be curcumin?
Okay. Here it's written.
It's cumin.
Curcuma. Can you see it?
Ah, okay. I think in English we call it cumin.
Cumin?
But I could be wrong.
No, I don't think it is.
Curcuma. I'll check in Google.
I'm looking. I'm checking right now. Curcuma.
Okay.
It is
organic turmeric
powder.
Organic turmeric.
It's Curcuma longa of the ginger family of the Zybercae, aka turmeric.
And Siam tulip.
Okay.
We're saying the same thing, but culturally we have different words for it. I like curcuma. That sounds better than turmeric.
So we're all here. I'd like to do a quick check-in round. And then also when you're checking in, I'd like specific blocks, things from current existence that represent blocks for you. A block is something experientially had. So something that's living.
Well, I just found out I'm a racist, so I'm a little blocked on that.
Yeah?
My friend sent me, my friend sent me the video of Bernie's speech winning the Nevada caucus, and there was a gentleman who happened to be African American speaking, and she said, "Look at the diversity," and I was like, "Where? I don't see it." "Oh, I see some Spanish people, some white people, and a black guy. I didn't see the diversity." So I guess I'm racist. I don't know. I don't see diversity. I don't see color. Maybe maybe I'm the opposite of racist. I don't even know what diversity means.
You could be colorblind. You could be colorblind.
Probably. No, but that was a block this morning because she's trying to get all excited about how much diversity is in the crowd, and I'm like, I don't see the diversity. I don't. Where's all the Asian people? Where's the Muslims? Where's the Arabs? Where's the Jews? I don't see any Jews in there. Where's the big noses? I was looking around. I didn't see the big noses. I didn't see the diversity. I don't know. But I'll check in and say that I'm good. And the only thing blocking me, I got too much sleep last night. I slept for too long. So I've been trying to wake up since 3 a.m. Finally got out of bed at about 6:30. But I went to sleep at 8 a.m. and woke up at 11:30 wide awake, ready to go. And I was like, oh no, it's still nighttime. It's still the last day. I didn't even make it to the next day. I've got to go back to bed. So yep, I just got too much sleep and too much energy right now. And I'm about to get caffeinated. So that's just a little warning. And with that, I'm complete with my check-in.
We're on notice. Einer?
Yes, I already mentioned I'm totally the opposite of Josh. Too little sleep. We have 10 days now, like LA or Cannes. We have the Berlinale Film Festival, and we are hanging out with strange guys. My filmmaker friend Jörg is sleeping, so he didn't take the coffee. I had to drink it. And we are running out for the next reception. Now, what we do is see how can we bridge these different ways of perceptions and presentations. And there I feel blocked. I had Amanda here for nearly 8 days, whatever, much more than a week. And it was so interesting, but also so difficult to come to a same character set, because we are all in traditions and all these world religions and their sign systems and annotation systems, and how to really meet one-on-one. It takes so much checking of glossaries, of vocabularies. And so I'm really blocked how we can do it in the internet, when it even takes a lot of time with intelligent people who are knowledgeable, which are curious, to really go into what do you mean by black box, white box, color box, what I say covenant or cognitive panorama. How long time it takes for her to realize that we are having totally different character sets. So not just different symbols, but signs and ways of expression in general. So I'm a little bit frustrated how hard it is, but it's also fun, and I hope she's coming. At the moment, she is locked into Spinoza, and I couldn't get her out of that.
Dove?
Yeah, so there's two things. One is a lack of impatience, and the second is a very short attention span. So lack of impatience, for example, now that Josh woke me up on the idea of advancing in the Spice Star, I want everything now. No, I want to wait. No. And on the other hand, I have tons of things in my to-do list. All of them are good. Like I'll give you an example. Today, someone called me from India. He wants me to run a workshop in India in 3 months.
Hold on, you broke up. You broke
"Don't
up.
bring-"
You broke up at he wants me to.
Ah.
What came after that?
Yeah, so he wants me to run a workshop to upskill coaches and also to accompany the people he works with. And to write the proposal, think about content.
Hold on. You're breaking up again.
Combination of if it was my only task, it would be easy. But because I have something like 6 or 7 things like that, one of them is the homework. And
The last
so
little bit.
to,
The last little bit broke up, Dove. I'm not sure why. It seems to be an internet intermittency.
yeah, I'll shut off everything.
No, maybe try without video, and then we might be able to hear you loud and clear.
Let's
Yeah,
see. Is
yeah,
it better now? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Well, we can hear you, but if it breaks up again, then probably the better part of valor is to turn off your camera or get closer to your Wi-Fi.
Let's do this.
There we go.
Okay. So what I said is very simple. It's the combination of tons of stuff and impatience. So procrastination and short attention span.
Well, I get the impatience. So the procrastination, short attention span is you have all this stuff now on your, like all of a sudden you went from looking for work unemployed to your plate is full and runneth over and you're not
No, I'm still looking for work.
Okay. And where is the procrastination part?
That I don't advance on any of these topics.
Gotcha. So I'm in a sort of exciting place as a result of a conversation with my daughter last night, who is wickedly skilled, having been on the receiving end of my fathering, which may not be a good thing, but she's become wickedly skilled at reading people and dynamics and how people do themselves and all of that stuff. And she shared some really awesomely insightful and powerful feedback to me about her experience of me as sort of, the coach from hell, because I tend to how did she describe it? She described it as risking it with benefit of hindsight. What she basically said was that in the way that I communicate the sort of sweet spot of my insight frame in the coaching work that I do, that it risks the person on the receiving end feeling like I'm blaming or putting responsibility on them for what they're challenged by or wrestling with. And that I can be way too aggressive at sort of getting to the punchline and the fix and the cure, and that I really, really, really need to give people vastly more time to just vent, to get their stories out, and their stuff out, and let them get acclimatized and soften up the insight delivery so that they don't experience themselves as, you know, being on the receiving end of a 40 millimeter. And it was extremely valuable. And I just have like a ton of backlog processing thinking about that in relation to the sort of trajectory of my coaching work in the past, and changes that I might want to make. And it's that, you know, that thing of the shoemaker's kids have no shoes, that, you know, as a coach, you sort of can lack for feedback, unless I guess you ask for it or solicit it. And it was just really invaluable, rare earth, insightful feedback from her that was just devastatingly on. It was just clear. It rang like a bell. And she was shocked and amazed that I didn't know this, which completely modified her judgment of me. She was sort of like, you know, after all these years, my daughter's what, you know, 20, 27, 26. So she's not a child, right? And after all these years, you know, she said, you know, to discover that you didn't know, like that you're not a dick, it's that you didn't know. And I was like, yeah. So so I'm actually unblocked with the new download, but I've got lots of processing and thinking to do about it, and about how it, you know, I may want it to inform that part of my work. So I think with that, I'm complete.
You use the word violent. Is it violent or is it direct?
Oh no, it's direct, but it's what she was shining a light on was that the directness can be harsh, and that the harshness of the energy when that's there is obviously would be clearly counterproductive in terms of helping, you know, wanting to help people. Yes, Josh.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot with my mom's generation and the way she acts. And a lot of it for me, I'm getting more in tune with my mom, is knowing what she had to fight through in the late 60s, early 70s, all the way to the 80s, and then now fighting her friends that went from changing the world in the 60s and 70s to making a ton of money in the 80s, having families, just what different people have been through in life. At least for me, I find some people say, oh, you're very angry and I don't like that. Just chill out and relax and give me some space to be smooth. And you're filled with sharp edges. And I think a lot of it has to do with the experience of the different fights we've been through and what that did to affect our physical body. Whereas a 26-year-old, no judgment on your daughter, I don't know her life, but they might not have experienced those type of fights and been in the fray and been in those battles and didn't get beaten down by those type of fights, if you will, that we've been through in different parts of our lives, fighting certain things. So therefore, when we're passionate about things, it comes off as anger and comes off as very harsh. And other people I've had a lot of younger people tell me that they're like, yo, you're angry. And I'm like, yeah, I'm angry. I got a right to be angry. My people have been persecuted. And they're like, well, my people haven't been persecuted, so I don't know what you're angry about. I'm like, well, you just haven't been persecuted yet. Wait till you get persecuted, then you'll get that anger in there. And they're like, I don't want that anger in there. That's terrible. You're a horrible person. You keep that energy away from me. So I'm just saying, a lot of people haven't been through some harsh things. So anyway, just trying to give some perspective of how we can, I'm going to say we, because I've known you for a little bit, Doug, when you go off on that rant about how people should do people correctly, it sounds so angry, and I freaking love it because I'm a big fan of that energy. But some people are not a fan of that energy. They do not like that. It just rubs them the wrong way, and they feel So
yeah. So it's good to know. It's good to know that I was doing that, and it's not something that I'd like to continue to do. So, yeah.
Right on.
But
I'm with you.
I don't attribute it to knocks and scars and tough life stuff. I just I'm just a New York Jew, and we're unfiltered. we're staggeringly unfiltered, and for most of the world, it's the level of being unfiltered that is comes across as very aggressive, and can hit some can hit being judgmental or feel judgmental, even if that's not the intention behind it. And I don't think anybody likes being judged or feeling like they're being judged. So
Yeah. When I was 36, I dated a woman who was just turned 20. And she said to me, nobody has the right to judge anybody. And I went, I love you. That's such a sweet thing to say. And we ended up dating. And then I realized later on, no, actually, people do have the right to judge other people, but it's a sweet sentiment. But that concept of nobody has the right in spiritual, beautiful terms and flowery terms, I agree with her 100%. But when all of her friends are acting like idiots, hanging out in my house at 2 a.m, being idiots, I had the right to judge them and kick them out of my house. Not that I did, but I had the right to. But they were too sweet, so I couldn't kick them out. But it's just different paradigms is all I'm saying. Different generations have different paradigms and different ways of dealing with life. So let's not get homogenized is my whole point. Is I don't think it helps if everybody was nice, then I could literally control everyone like a puppet, and it would be so easy. And I think that's the problem with the world is all the nice, good people are just sitting back going, it's not my problem. I don't want to rock the boat. Don't want to change that. So we need some dicks and some assholes in this world. I think that's important. That's just my opinion. Not everybody, but we need some. If their intentions are good.
So there's relative assholery in your world. As long as their intentions are good.
In certain situations, you need that asshole to be the catalyst that gets the ball rolling, and then all the nice people can roll the ball. But without that, the ball just sits there and blocks the road, and everyone's standing around going, well, we can't get through the road. Well, if only there was an asshole that was willing to push hard on the boulder, but we're not. So in some situations, you need an asshole. I've noticed that. And if that asshole is actually a nice person, that makes it even better. If they can do it in a way that doesn't rub people the wrong way, that's the goal. And I think that's a admirable goal for you, Doug, is to be able to be as direct and as New York Jew as you want to be in a way that's congruent to your own emotional state, so you don't have to feel that assholeness come up, so it doesn't affect your soul. So if you can figure that out, that's even more awesome. But don't stop being direct, please. I also noticed just changing the tone of your voice makes people feel so much better. If you can get to that sincere voice without the condescending, patronizing undertone that people can smell from a mile away, then it lets them relax a little bit in their soul, because we often trigger other people with their past traumas. And it's not what you're saying, but how you're saying it, that tone of that voice that affects people.
Yeah.
From experience, when someone tells me that I sound condescending, I will probably say no, you probably be right. Like when I reflect back, there's a grain there that the voice can't hide. So it happens, at least for me.
I think there's a grain not only in the tone, but also in the gestures, how your eyes, your grimace, your face looking like, and this is very often immediately telling or reading what your expectations and assumptions are. Much more before you think, you already have a mirror, a reflection of your inner gut or whatever it is. But it's all connected, and that is the most interesting thing for me, how to get polyaesthetic approaches, multisensorial, multimodal approaches, because one sense and one way of expression is very often misleading or wrongly interpreted, or through training, some people learn to be good demagogues. But if you see it as a whole picture, then radio demagogy like the German Nazi Goebbels, or visual demagogy, and all the other demagogies don't work when you see all this together.
Yeah, there was a book that I got off the streets in New York from the homeless people that sell the books, and it was called Gaze and Tone. And it was a whole book written about this subject. And I never read the book, but I just looked at the cover and I got it from there. Just gaze and tone.
Is that G-A-Z-E or G-A-Y-S?
It was not in the village, so it's G-A-Z-E, but if it was in the village, it would be G-A-Y. It wasn't in Chelsea, no.
Just speaking to the confusions of our times.
No problem. That's a whole nother book that needs to be
It
written,
is.
Gaze and Tone.
I was going to say.
You're on it, Doug. Yes, gaze and tone. You got it. That's it. Totally. Like I always admired gay people to be the flamboyant self. And I got a roommate that was halfway on the fence. He wasn't sure if he was straight or gay, but he was in the military for too long. And he would overdo it. I was living with him and I had to get another roommate, and I couldn't find anyone that would want to live with him. So I got a really, really over the top gay, super gay guy from Milan. So I was living with a sincere, honest gay person from Italy and a wannabe gay guy from Wisconsin. And he overdid it. He would see me and my girlfriend standing in front of the building, and he'd walk up to us and go, "Hey, bitches." And I'm like, "What? Tone it down. Tone it down. You're overdoing the gay. Like, just relax. Be yourself." So yeah, I think Gaze and Tone is a good book that needs to be written for sure. So are we helping Dove with his block, or does Heiner have a block? We'll sing a lullaby to Heiner so he can go to sleep. Go to sleep. No more coffee for Heiner. Go to sleep.
No, the block is that someone called and we are probably going out very soon for a meal. It is actually the guy I just mentioned. Edwin is his name, Edwin Stepp. And I will share it with you, Josh. So we might really do some crazy things on March 1st for this 24 hours World Futures Day. But that's not a block, that's a blockage, because it's so much and so many interests, and we want to bring them all on the table, and all should not be recorded like here, but we want to have friends since 8 years talking in privacy. But that is not possible because people will record. You cannot block this openness, this access to what people try to say in confidence, which I can tell you when I visit your mountain, Josh. So this is a blockage of trying to be really honest to new people, and other people not having the diplomatic or media how do you say, culture to misuse when people meet in honesty and want to learn and not make all the mistakes, and others just quote out of context, where all the problem is in our diplomacy. You cannot say openly because you're thrown out of your job, or you cannot learn because you cannot change your opinion 3 times an hour. So this is all what is blocking me. How can we come to trust beyond my close neighborhood?
I have a question. I'm curious. What happens with all of these recordings?
We sell to the devil.
They're reposed. I'm like staggeringly far behind in posting Thursdays, but Sam posts Sundays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Gertrude's Fridays currently are unrecorded for the reason that Heiner just mentioned, which is the work people do with her method, with the persuaders method. It gives them a comfort level that the personal work they're doing is recorded. But they do get posted. Links get posted.
What I'm asking is not if they get posted, but if anyone looks at them. Because my feeling is that there's so much information everywhere. No, like most of the photos that are taken currently are not looked at even once after that. So my question is less a question of privacy, more a question of usefulness.
Well, usefulness is an interesting question in and of itself. So my orientation is that we have these sessions, we create these containers and these conversations. They produce an artifact that is in fact viewable, accessible. I was sort of surprised over the last couple of years the degree to which when a link was posted, somebody would pop up and evidence the fact that they hadn't attended and they had watched it. And I think that's the wild card and the unknown in this phenomenon that we live in and experience with Zoom and these affordances and having these conversations, which is you really don't have any way of knowing what the ripple effects are, who has screened these things, or gone digging or inquired for links and watched them back. And I've had over the years, a surprising number of people that, as it turned out, were watching from the shadows, as it were, and would pop up in response to a particular conversation with, having gotten something from it. So I think it's easy to sort of construct a narrative that says there is so much stuff being created in so many dimensions, in so many contexts, that is never seeing the light of day, and it's that which sort of maps to, I think, a kind of cynicism that says, so what's the point? And that it has to be purpose driven. And I don't know that I relate to these from a purpose driven place. I relate to them very definitely from an experiential place, in terms of what is created in real time when these conversations are convened, when they happen. And that intrinsically in of itself is a justification for the doing of it, because of the edges we are feeling around and the things we are poking and probing when we have these conversations. And that's a value and purpose in and of itself. The sort of my experience, my sort of reactive experience to the construct, the question, the way you framed it, is there is an industrial imperative for everything to have a greater, grander purpose, and a greater, grander impact, and a greater, grander scaling, and it's the same kind of energy as the energy that says, in capitalism, everything is growth oriented. And it's like, why? How about it just serving? What if it doesn't have to grow in order to be of value? And it's why the perversion of state of the art isn't actually state of the art. State of the art is actually the first time it worked. And then development stops and progression stops, and that becomes, quote, state of the art. It's not state of the frickin' art. It's the first time it worked. And with that, yeah, Amanda, I'm complete.
Hi all. I just came back from, I think, democracy heaven. So just a short thing. Maybe we always want to grow because we're afraid otherwise we'll be overtaken. And the reason I say that is because I came back from a lecture on Spinoza, and it was about the state and democracy. And I found out that many people, they don't dare to be, how do you say that? They don't dare to really believe in peace. So peace is now a compromise against the violence of all of us against each other. And so we impose a state, then we believe that we're safe. And then I said, wait a minute, that's not peace. That's a compromise. So I believe that the whole solution for all of this growth and escapism of being overtaken by our fellow human beings is to believe that we're actually, and that can be learned in 5 minutes with an exercise. So, actually, it's really simple. But I was just shocked. So the half of the room was turning against me, like, how do you mean that's not real peace? It's always normal to have a compromise. And I was just looking again. It's like,
so it's sort of like a ceasefire does not equal peace. Yeah.
But it was interesting. I was like, so you don't believe in peace? You believe in compromise? That's it? That's the maximum you can imagine? It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I had a couple of wow moments in that lecture.
Well, so I have a version of the same thing. So there's a group of people that a friend convened, and they're all very, I think would count themselves all very, very conscious and mindful folks that have done a lot of work to get to the place they are, right? And so we were having a first, what you refer to in the trade apparently as a first tactical meeting. And it was one of those driven, a guy driving through this checklist of needing for the train to run on time and for everything to get done. And this one's talking out of turn, and that one's raising something that comes in section 3 of this meeting. And anyway, so we had a conversation, and a person glitched in an unblocking kind of way about pursuing something, because it was really, for them, it was getting over their skis. It was too far in advance, and it made them uncomfortable. It was sort of like first things first on an emotional level and the way they were relating to where we were going as a group. And the guy who was running the meeting was completely ignoring the fact that we had somebody who had just checked out. Like, clearly a button had been pressed. And I sort of like ground everything to a halt to check in with this person, and also to hopefully maybe try to give them enough space to feel acknowledged in the glitch that they had, and we could talk about that offline. But could they come back in the room effectively? Could they reconnect and rejoin with what we were doing, what we were talking about, where we were at, and did that pretty successfully and very, very quickly, like minimum disruption to the train going forward. And we had some free form time at the end, and 2 or 3 of these people were like doing very much rah to the train running on time. Like, sometimes you just can't process, sometimes you can't stop, sometimes you can't respond to somebody who's glitching like that. And I said to them, if that's the case, I'm out. I'm not interested in processes that run past that event and don't deal with it and have enough space and time to deal with it and make sure that that person is okay and back on the team before it progresses. And that doesn't mean it gets derailed. It doesn't mean you spend all of your time processing things and processing people, right? But it doesn't mean that whatever your quote agenda and agile, holocratic, dystopic nightmare of how you conduct an efficient meeting is, at the end of the day, if attention to the human experiential dimension of everybody present isn't part of it, then you're doing an old paradigm thing, and it's not about making progress. And you're planting seeds for failure in the future. Like, whatever progress you think you're driving on out of efficiency and making now, the person who glitched, the person that got run over, the person that had that moment, if they weren't given the means to get back in the saddle, then you're going to lose people. And I was surprised by the 3 people that were like, yeah, sometimes you just got to drive through and push through and drive people, past their stuff. Like, you don't respond to it. You don't have to give it time. You don't have to allow it to interrupt the flow at all. Just like, here's what we're doing. And so for all the consciousness and mindfulness and awareness that these people purport to have, they still have these ego attachments and things that say when they're in their groove, they're in their groove, and they're just going to get to the end of their story. And, damn the torpedoes. And I just really think that's got to change. Like that don't work.
How do they relate, Doug?
For the most part, they relate great. But here was this moment of truth where all of their skill and talent at relating, like literally went up the flue, and then they became like, machines.
I mean, my story and your story.
Well, for me, what I heard in yours was that thing about half the room seeing a ceasefire as equaling peace.
No, half the room was just in the belief that peace is a compromise naturally, and was astounded that that could be perceived differently.
Right.
And at least one person was very grateful I brought it in, because then she had a way also to say, yes, I see that differently also. So it there was a new discussion for that reason.
Heiner and then Dove.
I think I have shown Amanda, but I have shown it earlier to other people. A friend of mine has done for the 95 Peace University a totem with a saying, and this saying is done in 160 languages in different sign systems, and it was found in Iraq the same way like with the First Nations, and it says somehow like peace is not the opposite of war, but the war is the only the extreme, and peace is a spectrum, all the war until physical fight, but it's a very, very large area of closer and less close to war, and being found in all this many cultures, all somehow saying the same. It is bad to just do the opposites of black and white, but the spectrum of negotiations and doing and compromising, this is really known in the cultures.
Maybe first Dove, and then I will respond if you, yeah.
There's an anecdote, I don't remember who said it. He said, my friends told me that they will fuck anything that moves. And I say, why limit yourself? What I'm saying is, sometimes we think that something is the extreme only because we don't realize that there's more.
Thank you.
Certainly true in the US these days.
I wanted to say on Heiner, with the Spinoza lecture, I mean, peace was just a compromise against that everybody would be violent with each other. So peace was nothing peaceful. If that's the compromise, it's a state of complete fear and surrender to a greater violence than your own or each other's. That is not peace. Peace is something you do not fear, at a minimum. And then I realized that democracy until now, or the state, is something, that is a compromise. So we have a state-imposed violence is less bad than if we would all fight with each other. So nobody actually believes they're good. Nobody actually believes in peace. Nobody believes in cooperation. And the whole room was confirming that to me. And in order for your story, Doug, about it was nearly me checking out. So I realized that brilliant ideas and brilliant states of life and living check out because of compromise, because free thought is considered dangerous. Any manifestation power is considered dangerous. And we do not render because of a collective, because it's good. We render out of fear, and we render our manifestation power, and we render everything we could contribute for idiocy at the moment. That's what I learned. And that should be able to be said. If that's not being able to be said, then that's not a real discussion either. So I'm still, I had a couple of wow moments, and the person leading it, I know him from the comments. So I checked in with a guy from Berlin. Maybe you know him, Heiner. I will send. But he was leading the lecture, and he was actually surprised that I said, "That's not peace. Don't speak bad of peace." And then the thing that Spinoza wrote is about it, and I said, "That's not ethics." And he wrote it in the book of ethics. I said, "Ethics is about doing good." He said, "No, it's not moral. Ethics is about doing right." But I said, if it's right for everyone, then it's good for everyone. Then it should not impose a fear on the collective by individuals. That's not ethics. There's something. So he did a remarkable job, this Spinoza, in his time. He was under threat and he couldn't write freely. So I understand. But in our time, we should be able to discuss this, very liberally, and and it's not. We're not able. We're still in jail after 400 years. It's high time. But that's it.
Yeah.
So they didn't have stones to stone you? I've experienced that in Arabia.
No
when these women
pitchforks.
pick up, we take big stones and throw them.
I had a classmate when I was in school who said, if you were born in Iran, you would have been dead by now. So, and I felt those stones earlier on, but not with this group. They were lovely still, but very surprised. They couldn't get it.
Yeah, makes me think of I've been watching those fighters called mixed martial arts fighters. So they're trained killers. They fight in a style that is just deadly, just the most deadly people I've ever seen. And I watch them get interviewed, and they're the most peaceful, loving people. And when I was living in New York, I would always make friends with the bouncer in front of the club. Before I went in, all my friends would go into the club and get their drinks, and I'd stay outside and just talk with the bouncer to get a feel for the place that I'm about to go into and what the security is and what's, the bouncer knows who went into the club because they're the one that let everybody in. So they know what I'm about to experience. I talked to them before I even walked in. And it's really interesting, the different personalities of all the bouncers at all the nightclubs in New York City. And most, I would say 50 to 60% were very peaceful. And another 40% had a big chip on their shoulder and just waiting for their time to exert their power. And how people exert their power, like you're saying, Amanda, is if somebody is afraid and docile and peaceful because the power's over them, that's not peace. It's when they can kill the other person in 2 seconds and then they choose to be very nice and sweet. That to me is peace. And that, I think one of our presidents in America was Theodore Roosevelt. And he said this about the whole world: walk softly and carry a big stick. I think, or I don't know if that's the correct quote, but that was the idea back in the turn of the century of American power. And now it's just drop the biggest bomb on whoever you can. It's a very different, I mean,
isn't that stupid that we still take that seriously? Come on.
Well, we haven't had a major war in a long time, so we haven't had to exert that power, and all these little minor wars are devastating and destructive. Afghanistan.
You call it minor? I thought it was big enough.
That's the point. I don't call it minor. I call it when one person gets killed, that's terrible. When hundreds of people get killed, that's terrible. But the idea that, it's not millions, so it's minor. It is insane. And the war in Iraq happened. The news media, the people that call the names of the wars, they name the wars cold wars. It's a cold war. It's not a hot war.
Josh, you have a new law, I heard from a guy in Washington, that you cannot speak about hate, or hate is a forbidden word, but media is allowed to say these things?
Anyone can say anything they want in America. They just have to have the right lawyer backing them up.
I understand. But then okay. But that's, okay. I'm just, wow. And people are buying that nonsense.
Which nonsense? The minor war
That
nonsense?
that is, yeah, that it should be
The,
bigger
va-
than
the
that.
vast the vast bulk of Americans are untouched by things that don't happen in their backyard.
No.
So the fact that there are
It,
genocides happening as we speak around the world does not reach them where they live. So if out of sight, out of mind, that's the ugly American disease.
It's our
and
wisdom
geographically,
culture comes from there.
yeah, I
Our
hate to say it, but
mathematics
the
and our
vast,
arithmetics and our coding and our Aristotle came back via Arab, and I learned a lot of things there, but we don't know. It's our culture over there that we're destroying.
yeah, I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind, or maybe you already know this, but if you say the word Europe to a lot of people in America, they think that's a country.
Yeah, I
They
understand.
literally think Europe is a country. And if you say Africa, they think Africa is a country. And they literally have no idea that there's 50 states in America. They think that the state that they live in is the only state, and that's what America is. They don't think that there's 50 states in America. They think that Florida is the do-all to end all, and that's the country. It's Florida. And I grew up in Massachusetts, and most of my friends are still there. They never left Massachusetts, and they tell me I'm a crazy guy for going to California when I was 17.
No, but
And
it's
how
not.
dare I go?
I
Go
don't.
ahead.
Well, maybe in Europe we have a little bit more cultural differences, but I have colleagues that stayed 20 years in the same job, and they didn't grow out of that, and they didn't question their boss like, wait a minute, we can do that differently. So they have the same state of mind in another way. They may be
Yep.
culturally more advanced, but on another dimension, they're just as stupid. And I wonder how that came about. But if there's no freedom of thought because there's suspicion that that may be a violent thing, and that creativity and innovation may be a violent thing if it's not up for growth for the same guys.
Well, fear. I mean, the system and world we live in is rooted out of fear. It's designed to atomize and to separate and to create complacency. It's really its roots are rooted in fear. That's the growth medium out of which most of it persists. So the question, to Einer's point about how to, the question to my mind is, as a threshold issue, how to create safety, how to create places, containers, opportunities for people to experience safety, and sufficiently experientially compelling that they actually can get to a place where fear is not driving. That's the question, and that's the challenge, and that's a lot of what these GCC spaces and conversations are about, which is this is a safe place for those that come to be who they are, bring what they think, what they have going on, without it being a contact sport, without it being fundamentally about judgment and competition and winning and all that stuff.
I'm going to bring something up, Doug. Had a really nice chat with a gentleman in Australia who's originally from Iran. And I worked with him, with Amanda, and a bunch of other people in this group called the PKE group. Do you remember Alexar, Amanda? I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, I'm critical about the startup climate he's in, but that's okay. He's really not a
Well,
common.
that's what we were talking about. That's exactly what we were talking about, is the startup climate that he's in is not helping the world. free itself from the distributed idea suppression complex. And I'm going to keep saying that over and over again until I can meme that understanding. The distributed idea suppression complex.
DISC, DISC.
The DISC. And the DISC is what I let him know that he's involved in this startup culture, is all these beautiful ideas to change the world are just waiting to be owned by the complex that he's in, the venture capitalists that are just waiting to buy it as soon as it's created.
But he knows.
And so
he knows.
He knows. He knows.
He's not.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Ignorant about that.
Nope.
And that's why I snap every time I meet him. I'm just like, it's like, because I'm not there to explain it to him. He knows, and he deliberately still takes part. And I live that.
Well, if that's his thing, that's his thing.
That's okay, but he doesn't need to explain it to me because I'm from the commons, so he should know that I'm not there.
Right.
So we do not. I do not need to have that imposed on me. You know?
Right.
It's right.
So there isn't a basis for nexus between you. So just not for nothing. He lives where he lives. You live where you live. There's no basis of nexus on the face of how you ended up rubbing noses and comparing notes. You determined there was no nexus in any of that. Was there any basis to inquire further where there may be a nexus?
No, because I felt no openness to it.
Right. So that's the question, right? That's the
Otherwise
inquiry.
I would. But
yeah, no, understood. But that's the challenging question to me, yeah. which is the Gestalt. My Gestalt is I can always find like kinds, people that are warm and fuzzy and familiar to play with, that are like me, right? There are vastly more people that are not like me.
Mm-hmm.
And on the face of it, where there is absolutely no nexus for us to find anything in common, yet we're both human beings.
Yes.
So how do what becomes the driver, the means, and the mechanism for me to push through that initial we have nothing in common and say, can we find something? Can we find a toehold that we do have in common? So a little anecdote. So my wife and I were in one of these like Lowe's or Home Depot, that kind of place. And we were in the garden center. And there was this older guy pushing a cart, and he was clearly in physical pain of some kind. And he happened to be wearing what? A MAGA hat, a red Trump MAGA hat, right? And I forget what the initial words were for him and I to connect. And my wife was standing there, and he said, yeah, he had just given up his gallbladder. And my wife is down a gallbladder. And so we ended up in a little conversation with him. And we had a connection that was a human connection around this commonality of physical frailties and disease and, you know, what can happen. And my wife shared with him what her therapist had shared with her that changed the trajectory of her life after she lost hers, which was when she went in for her next session, and the therapist said, so what's the next organ you're going to give up? You're going to lose. And so, you know, there was a basis for a common finding between this guy and us. And not sure how we got there, but we started in that space and finished the conversation in that space. And, you know, it was before Gertrude had cleansed me of my Trump lizard brain, rip off the head and shit down the throat reaction that I had to anything Trump, including those fucking red hats. And And that reactivity wasn't present because it wasn't on the table. It wasn't the basis for, where we didn't meet, right? It was finding a place where we did.
Was it genuine?
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, it was really, you look like you're, suffering. And it was like, yeah, I just had a gallbladder removed and it's really uncomfortable and painful. Yeah.
When that's possible, anything is possible. From there, things can grow.
And yeah, so it starts, I keep coming back to, it starts with connection, like experiencing each other from a place of connection. Because at the end of the day, the human experience isn't about, Trump or Sanders or any of that extrapolated crap. The human experience is about, feeling and connecting and recognizing somebody else, seeing where we connect, where we are in fact in common to each other.
But very often, I would say that we also hide for the real topics by just only chit-chatting about our Sundays, our weekends, our sports, our families, our little, oh, we're so cozy together and we're all non-violent, blah, blah, blah. And I find nothing more violent than that, to be honest. That's where I have to hide. So all these people that are hiding for 20 years in the same job, the same state, the same, I don't know what. I wonder why they didn't go out and look to get a good talk somewhere. So normally at birthdays I hide, or mostly I go to the men, that they mostly speak on content more than women. It's still like that, I'm sorry guys. I have to hide for these conversations that go about nothing. So there's a fine line. I do believe in this real connection, and if it's possible, then I really tune in and I go there. And from there, I elevate it again. And if people are afraid, and at some point, I have to go out and elevate myself at least. But till where can you, stand it? What's the border of your stretch?
Well, the value set that keeps me anchored in hanging in the face of the discontinuities, right? The lack of common ground, is that ultimately it's an all of us or none of us deal in terms of our collective survival. The fact of the matter is, either we're all going to, figure out how to do it together to survive, or we're all going extinct. It's not like there's a compromise.
To give them the responsibility as well, instead of taking over it. So I often just push it out and say, look, this is your responsibility. I'll be back when you're on it. So I'm not leaving, but I do leave the chit chat, and I make that very, very, very clear, and I do make it concrete that it's about something. So, and that's quite intense, but yeah, that's what I'm about. And they're back when they're on for it, because they know I'm straight on it.
Heiner.
I want to respond to Amanda. You see, what you say of the different styles of the women and the men talking is something I totally observed or experienced the other way around. We had with the Earth Stewards this dialogues in conflict zones with Dan and Perry. And there, when it was really complicated, we separated the women's circles and the men's circles. And the women were more to the details and deep ponderings and discussions and what you mean and the proportions of and consequences. And the men were very much on the surface and very easily being attracted by soccer or beer or whatever, not sticking hard to very certain meanings and reflections to the very end.
I
So
think you had an intellectual
we
group,
have
but I
been
speak of
living
an
on
average
different
birthday.
worlds.
I speak of an average birthday in a average neighborhood where women have children and all go into chit chat about my children on school did this, blah 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 blah, and men at least speak of politics or something. Sorry, but this is my observation, and it's not the most intellectual crew maybe, but they're also not lowly educated. But this is my average observation of family life in the Netherlands, at least, that it's really boring.
Well, these were Earth stewards who were trying to make peace between nations and conflicting parties. So maybe that is not representative.
So I feel that you're very judgmental in your point of view, Amanda. Like
No, I'm not. I am very experienced in my view.
I feel that.
No, that's not true.
I don't feel that. That's what you're saying.
But please
I
say
assure you that that's what I feel.
Please say that you feel about that, not that I am. I am not.
Yeah, but perhaps you're not. But I say that that's what I feel, and I want to say a few things about this. One, you can have a chit chat which is very empathic and warm, and there's a lot of connection, talking about the weather, and you can have very violent alien.
Dove, hold on. You broke up.
So,
your audio started breaking up.
So perhaps I'll change audio.
Yeah, or turn your camera off just for bandwidth.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it better now?
Yep.
Okay. So I said you can have very warm and empathic exchange about the weather, or about I don't know what, about kids in the playground, or about banal, what you call banal topics, and you can have very alienated and conflictual intellectual exchanges about very deep topics. And like just hearing what you say, I'm going now to a vipassana of like 10 days with no talking. So from what I understand, there will be no deep things around.
I speak of exclusion. I speak of social exclusion, which is allowed by chit-chat. I do not speak of generalized what's possible. I speak of social taboos. I speak of exclusion in normal conversations in the household that is never being pursued as that it is exclusion. And I do notice it. So I feel it should be able to be spoken about without being reasoned away in this, I understand what you're saying. That's possible. But if topics are not being dealt with systematically because people are hiding and they're ignoring that other people want to, then that's, then the lifestyle of a group is a preservation of a taboo. It's an exclusion, it's an excluding methodology, nearly, not to engage with life more fully. And it's like maintaining a group cult to keep it like that. So I speak of, there's no mix and match, not really.
So my question is, when you see exclusion, when you see taboos, are they there, or is it your view that puts them there?
What do you think? How long have you been a man on this world and this planet? How long have you observed women struggling with this? Am I the first woman telling you that? I'm sorry. I'm just getting confused.
No, not at all.
I find it extremely smothering that women only speak of their small lives and they do not dare to even go wider, and that I have to speak to men about that. In a normal context, that I have to run away from the work, canteen table just because of the smothering context, that I see my colleagues of former work for 20 years in the same job not changing their lives, that I see nearly no one engaging in these sort of groups. I think that is just shocking. I find that shocking. I find it a huge taboo. I find it a huge excluding thing in society, that we're not up to at least develop something. And I see a huge gap between people engaging in these sort of new experiments and people standing actually still and not having any idea about what's moving. And then, you know, having them make you report why you did that. That's like the other way around. I'm just like, holy shit. Why did I do that? Because everybody's standing still, nobody's curious.
So here's the difference that for me in how I look at that, because I don't have a judgment of them existing in the bubbles that they're existing in. I'm not judging them as I'm not judging them in a value system. I'm looking at them as human beings in whatever frame or state they're in whatever reality they're in. Hold on a sec, hold on. And the first place, the sort of first priority in service to, if there's a possibility of establishing connection, establishing safety, establishing trust and relationship, as a precondition to any exchange or opportunity to connect and for them to potentially gain more or learn more or grow, that I don't get to that unless I come from a place of unconditional love, which is recognizing who they are and where they're at and loving them in the way they want to be loved, not the way I want to love them. The latter, me loving them in the way I want to love them, is projective, is about power over, and is aggressive. It's actually violent. But if I love them unconditionally, which is in the way they want to be loved, which is about creating connection and safety, it's not as being ignorant. It's about their state of awareness, or through my eyes, awareness or lack of awareness doesn't inform or change the fact that my first interest is establishing connection, because if I don't have that, there's no learning. If there's no safety, there's no learning.
I speak of exclusion on which people are responsible for. You cannot say that ignorance or being fearful is an excuse for never connecting from the other side. If this is tier 1 exclusion and violence, which is imposed on others just to keep your ignorance in place, then that is not okay. And love is not keeping ignorance in place. That's not loving. That's keeping harmony, just not to fear yourself. At least I engage in some conversation, you know, and get to a point with these people. Gets more equal than just, you know, saying, oh, you can't help it. I'll wait until you're ever ready. I waited for 20 years, they're not ready, and I don't know what's going on, but there's imposed exclusionary strategies here, and they're not nice.
Tammy and Heiner.
Hi.
Hi.
Who are they? I just need a point of clarification.
I don't want to revisit. It's hard. No, but we are in a deep conversation about taboos and social exclusion, which has been normalized. And so we spoke. Yeah, thank you, Josh. That's helping exactly you in the middle. Thank you. And so we have a debate whether that's so or not, whether I'm judgmental or whether you should be loving forever and, you know, keeping people in their ignorance. I don't know. But I feel there's taboos and there is social exclusion that has been embedded in how we live. And that is nearly taboo even to speak about it. And even in this group, when I bring it in, then I get one, they say, oh, you're judgmental. The other one, oh, you should be loving. And I'm like, these people can go themselves. They're not clear. And they're exclusionary.
I think I'm next, and I want to say bye-bye. I was so happy that I see Tammy and Amanda and Jörg just woke up. So we have to go to hit the streets again. And it
Enjoy.
was so good that I think all these taboo matters we have to do next Sunday.
We can do that. We can do that.
Or you
Enjoy
just
your
continue
festival.
and we just wanted to shake hands.
Shake hands. Yeah.
Shake hands.
Good luck with the festival.
So what is new with you, Tammy? Haven't seen you since ages.
Everything. And Harry and I are flying back to the Netherlands on Thursday. And the home that we steward here, we've just done a massive renovation and transformation. And so I've been hard at work with that. And the finish line is when we get on the plane at 3:30 on Thursday PST. So I'll be spending Leap Day. We've got a Leap Day coming up, folks. So that'll be in Europe for me, which is awesome. So in a nutshell, that doesn't tell you very much, but does broad strokes. That's it. And I was like, last night, actually, as many of you know, I go to a self-development class, psychic development class. And we had our teacher over last night and had a dinner with some potential new students. And Stacy came in. So we had Stacy on the computer and, 10, 12 people in the room. And it was so great. It was really neat to have that point of focus of a computer that people were also including in the conversation with Stacy. And it was really beautiful. So that's also a thing. And just to speak to taboos and social taboos and exclusion, I think I'm not sure how the whole conversation unfolded, but these things are difficult to talk about and difficult to name. So thank you, Amanda, for stepping into the fire of that, because I think that people want to put their best foot forward. And part of that can look like a social exclusion or a spiritual bypassing or this sort of skipping over thing. And there are lots of things that we're conditioned not to talk about. And so I think it's really healthy to kick the tires of that and to do our best to name it and also be able to hold the multiplicity of perspectives there, because it's not just what one person is saying. It's actually a much fuller spectrum of experience and reality. And we need each other's perspectives to be able to touch the wholeness of what's actually true. So thank you for doing that work. It's not easy being the voice that is saying, yeah, but this isn't talked about. We don't talk about this. So good work.
Duff?
So first of all, Tammy, great to hear your voice. I wanted to say something. Amanda, you said things that you feel like we shouldn't discuss this. That we don't want you to talk about stuff, that there's topics that are taboos. God forbid. Like I love to hear anything. What I try to say is that what I hear from you is that you say, I see someone who has been oppressed and I want her to rebel. I want her to go the other way. When I see someone who I think has been oppressed, the only thing that I would like perhaps is for them to see what I see.
I
And
wish it
from
was
there,
not 70.
what?
I wish it was not 90%. You do not realize this is not
90.
one person.
I
This
am,
is
of course.
90%, 90%, my friend. I'm
Yeah.
speaking as the minority here.
Okay.
It's the other way around. I wish it was like that I could say, oh, this poor thing. It's not like that. Get that.
Before we digress, I just wanted to say when love is brought up in these conversations, it can be used as a noun or a verb, and it's so ambiguous. And we even changed the word in a conversation one time to connection and bonding. And it's a very ambiguous action verb of how we show our love. And when Amanda came onto the conversation, I felt this beautiful love coming from her from this beautiful talk, and this love of understanding, of knowing things on a deeper, deeper, deeper level of peace and democracy. And the first words out of your mouth, Amanda, that I heard was, I just learned a way to do democracy better so that we can actually be democratic and be open and be in the comments and be in that space. So I just wanted to say that so that we're not digressing into how each other feels, shows, and receives love. Because I know some people that I touch physically and I put my hand on their shoulder and they're like, hey man, don't touch me. And other people like embrace that touch and want me to pull them closer. So two different people can feel love differently. So let's not argue about how we want to be loved, but admire and understand and give you the love that you need, Amanda, to put that love out into the world of what you like. I'm excited to hear more about democracy and what you had to bring to the table here.
Thank you.
As opposed to what you're fighting. Like, I think that's what I hear Dove saying is like, I don't want to know what you're fighting. We know you're fighting the good fight, but what are you giving? What are you sharing? What is the strength you're giving to us as a group? So I just
God, I believe
wanted
in
to interject with that. Thank you.
No, I really do. That's the thing. I believe that they can do it. So I'm nearly, up to the point that I'm thinking, why not? That's it. Thank you.
Can I say something about democracy? It's a growing organism that spreads out like a virus, and it's because the message about democracy is that it works best when everybody votes in the country. Democracy is very regional, national to countries where it's operating. It's a political system. So if everyone in that country is voting, you've got 100% of the people voting, people who can vote. And then you've got a good democracy. It works best like that. If you've got only half the country voting, democracy stops working. It just breaks down. It can't function in that environment. You've got only a small percentage voting who have vested interest, and someone's going to miss out there because it's 49% versus 50 on the best you can get with democracy. 49 versus 51%. But it can work if people realise that this virus that's spreading is spreading that message. Not voting is surrender. It's not rebellion. If you don't vote, you're surrendering, and the people who are voting are the rebellious ones. They're doing the right thing, believe it or not. So I love that. That's why I wanted to bring up love and democracy and somehow bridge them.
I was just a thought that just arise when you're talking, Alex, is looking at other organisms that aren't people and how they move and do their democracy. And one of the organisms that came to mind was slime mold, which it has a disgusting name, but it's a beautiful organism. And I was thinking, why does slime mold do such a great job of moving and creating movement? I'll even name it love. How does it all love together? And it's because all the slime mold is seeking the sugar. So if there were certain pieces of slime mold that didn't want sugar, they would go in one direction. but because the organism works together and separates, I don't know, I'm assuming that everybody knows how slime mold works. I should probably not assume that. But slime mold is a moving organism that creates a democracy because it's all seeking the same thing, which is the sugar and the feeding and the fitness and the natural thing. And humans do the opposite sometimes, is they should be seeking the light or the sugar or the good of all. And some are moving in the wrong direction, going towards things that are not good for society. So they're moving in a direction, like when you're saying they want peace, and they're moving what they think is peace, but it's not peace for everybody, it's just peace for themselves. It's very confusing. Democracy is a very confusing thing when you put people into the mix. I just want to just be aware that human beings don't always work in a natural system. They buck the natural system, meaning some people go for people that beat them as a relationship partner, and they're getting battered and beaten, and their family says, why are you with this person? They beat you. And they're like, well, I love them. And it's like, why? Like, from the outside, you look at this person in this relationship, why are you being emotionally, physically abused by this other person? How could you love someone like that? And that's the I just want to be aware that human beings are very complex creatures. So go ahead, Dove. I'm complete.
So just a small sentence. I'm a coach in something called Xscale, and a part of the approach in Xscale is to find what we call a network of mutual benefits. So to see where everyone can win by supplying everyone needs and focusing the purpose of the group over there, and not in the place of competing, but on the place where they complete each other to benefit each other. And that's what you're describing in the strive toward sugar.
A thought that just popped in my head is the word popularism. And I've heard a lot of people lately say we're living in an age of popularism. And what's popular is the sugar as opposed to the actual sugar itself. So in that analogy, I'll say a lot of people are going for the stevia because that's the sugar, but some people want organic raw cane sugar because that to them is the sugar. And if stevia is more popular than the organic good sugar that is natural, then that seems to be some of the problem, that we're going towards something that we think is peace, but it's not really peace.
Interesting.
It's popular.
I heard today
Go ahead.
a podcast. I heard today a podcast of about Black people in America, and someone who talked about how the oppression that they had the slaves still echoes in ways that you don't even imagine. And she said one example is the fact that in America the craving for sugar is the biggest in the world. So I remember that, like the working with sugar canes and all of that. So you never know where the effect is.
Well, I do know that our tastes can adapt to change when you force it upon yourself, like I went on unsalted butter. And for the first few days, I missed the salted butter. But after a few days, my taste buds adapted. And now I'm eating this unsalted butter and I wouldn't know the difference. It tastes fine. And I think that probably applies to sweet stuff too. I mean, the tongue's got so many different areas of taste buds, and the brain and the emotional part of your heart has got areas that are more sensitive than others too. So they're going to be affected by the way you treat them, the way other people treat them, and the way you can adapt. It's adaptation. I love that word, but I hate talking like that because it makes me sound more like Trump. Anyway, oh, but
When last night we were having a conversation, and one of our core members here had a conversation years ago about being in relationship in community, and she in her what she said, she included the word positive, to just orient towards whatever communication needs to happen in a positive way. And one of the other people heard that and heard fake, just non-authenticity, basically. And it took them hours to get to the point where they understood where that difference was, because when one friend heard positive, they heard that's bullshit and you're just covering over and not really, not speaking the truth. And the other person came from a very nuanced, well, also very clear, of you orient yourself in the best possible way, considering how another person can receive something, because you want someone to hear you. So, to bring it in a way that can be understood by modulating your energy, by the words that you choose to use. It was hours to get to the point where they understood, oh, we define this particular word differently. And it's valuable, because then we do see that difference and we have a very important conversation. Because for me, it's about the process. Can we say all that needs to be said on something so that it can be more understood and it's valuable? And it also points to this thing of what we don't talk about. With one person, this positivism has downpressed them, actually. And so they react. They're like, fuck you and your positivity. And the other person is coming from a place of putting the best foot forward and communicating in a way that can be received, which is also really valuable. And both are important. And the process is really having that dialogue all the way to the end to understand and not assume what another person is saying, but to be curious and to really seek to understand.
We're reaching also the end, I think. Done.
We are.
Yeah. So just to catch back to where I came from, and thank you for reminding me, Josh, also. But if it's about embracing a peace that is not peace, that is actually fear from violence, which was the message back from, after Spinoza, the lecture that I was in today, Demi, then everybody can agree that peace is just a compromise against violence, and that it's actually not peaceful and not and not something to really be peaceful in, and that it's, you know, just it's a compromise of fear maximum. But do we then arrest the person that says, well, peace is something else? So it's about these sort of, you know, connotations, and sometimes it's 90% or even more people that says, no, peace is something that should be done out of fear. We shouldn't really believe in peace. We should not have harmony. I think that's, you know, these are part of the systems that we're dealing with that are making it very complicated, at least for pioneers to at least breach something or get something over. and being, yeah, only generous and waiting forever, it just didn't work in my life. I'm sorry. I do that differently.
Dove?
What I hear, there's a difference between saying what you call peace sucks and this is real peace, and saying what you call peace is wonderful and this is what I call peace, which I think is more wonderful for me. And that's the like, that's where I'm saying that I hear some disrespect in what you say to people who don't see what you see.
Well, it's for me about also protecting the word peace. So when that was being said in the lecture, as if there was not even a question about if it's a compromise to fear, that would be the maximum of peace. And I was the only one actually saying, wait a minute, that's not peace. Why are you calling that peace in the first place? And that cannot be said differently. You cannot always harmonize things over and just smooth things over. Things must be also clear. I don't see a problem with that. But maybe it's a problem since
if you
there's
and me,
a taboo on doing that.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter if it's peas or a tomato. If you and me use the same word to something else, I wouldn't assume that I have the right definition and you have the wrong one, because there's no right and wrong. I understand that now that I say what?
This is about war. This is about violence. This is about peace as a maximum of, you know, a compromise of different violences competing. That is no peace, and it should be said.
Okay.
We've got human nature.
Go ahead,
We're
Alex.
gonna have to shift into closing round mode. So these contributions are final and they're one way, and not launching pads for continuing, if I can say that.
Excellent.
So Alex,
a good note for me to check out. I mean, this notion of balance is between love and hate, love and conflict, harmony and peace. You see that they're at either end of the spectrum, and the balance is in the middle. Because I was at a party once, and there were people in the bedroom making love, and there were people on the back lawn fighting. This is the fundamental of human nature. So the balance is somewhere in between those two extremes. And that's my checkout for today. Been a good session. Over.
Josh?
Yeah, I'll check out. And if people want to talk more and you need to go, Doug, you could throw the co-host over this way if you need to, just because it's a lovely conversation. I was thinking a lot about all these conversations that we've been having, and Dove brought up, where are these conversations going? But one of the threads that I thought of in all the conversations, whether it be here at the GCC or anywhere in my life, is the 4 directions that the ancient people talk about, which is the north, south, east, and west. And a lot of native people have come to me and taught me the 4 directions as they see it, as they were taught as children. And the 4 directions that I've come to realize in conversation is the directions of ingress, progress, regress, and digress. And I think sometimes when we want to progress, another person is ingressing. So what I'm hearing you say, Amanda, is that you're going into yourself and saying, what is peace for you? And shouldn't that be a progress of peace for everybody else? Whereas someone else that ingresses and goes in says, this is fine enough for me, and I'm okay with leaving it there, and I don't need to progress. If anything, I might want to digress. And so the four directions that our souls go in, whether it be north, west, east, or south, or progressing or digressing, or ingressing or regressing, is something that in conversation, we get to look at each person and find out where they're going. Are they going into themselves, or are they going out to the group? And a lot of people have the ability that you have, Amanda, which I think is a beautiful ability. And this is just something I see, is you can be in a room with a whole bunch of people and not afraid to have to vibrate with where the room is going. You go into yourself and say, this is how I feel. This is my truth, and this is how I feel. And I would love to get that feeling towards the whole group. So that's my checkout for now, is to say, which direction is the human being going in during the conversation? And to look for, are they trying to progress the conversation, or are they trying to digress the conversation, or are they going into themselves? And just to be aware of those directions during the conversation, so that we can have better conversations and unblock on a Sunday. With that, I'm complete.
Hello, Sam. We're doing checkouts. Do you want to do a checkout? You've been here by avatar.
I have no context, so I don't want to.
Tammy?
Been good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's. I think this next 3-month chunk will be a lot different for me. So hopefully, I have more time to be present here. Because this last 3 months, it just hasn't happened. So it's so nice to see everyone, and nice to meet you, Dove.
Same here.
Yeah.
So for me, I would just like to thank you for this chance to procrastinate for 2 more hours. As I said in the check-in, that's part of where I'm blocked.
And I guess I'll bring up the rear. I recognize sort of full spectrum and full dimensionality of how we come as a species, and in the maelstrom of that, and the diversity of that, I'm looking for the ways and the places to reconnect, and that's not academic for the sake of connection and kumbaya, but how to reconnect so that folks can reclaim their agency, reclaim their generative potential, reclaim their voices, reclaim their birthright, for want of a better way of putting it, as human beings. And I see most of the people in the world as very far from being able to do that. Usually, in a circumstantial context of fear and terror, and I, to the extent I believe it's all of us or none of us, I'm looking for how to create safety as quickly as humanly possible in service to people reconnecting with their power and their humanity, and their entitlement to be part of and contribute to. And that if that can be accelerated on a scalar basis globally, quickly, bottom up, then we have the ability as a species to figure it out, to fix what ails, maybe even to stop killing each other. I'm an optimist, and so I lean toward the positive. I lean toward the aggregative. I lean toward the what adds to the system, what takes away or destroys or judges it. And that's just my own personal preference in terms of where I put my time and attention. But this session certainly provokes all the tough questions and some deep wells and where the inquiries are and where the challenges are. And for that, I'm very thankful that each of you brings you and that we end up with what we co-create. And for that, nothing but gratitude. So with that, I relinquish you to your Sunday, Alex, your Monday. And hopefully we'll see some of you on Thursday. And till next time.
Thanks a lot.
Dove, if you have time and you want to connect one-on-one, let me know. I can send you a thing if you're still wanting to procrastinate or get some work done. Let's do that. I'll send you a link. Thank you, guys.
How you been, Tammy? You're still on mute, by the way.
Amazing and full on. It's been really intense. Miss you. Next time we come this summer, I'd love to, let's get together. Let's make sure we connect. I know
So you're in Europe for 3 months, you said?
Yeah.
So March, April, May, so you're back in June?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be summer. Weather should be nice. Will your passport be taken care of by then?
Well, I don't have an answer for that. Oh shit, my next thing is happening.
Okay, sorry to keep you. You gotta go?
We've got some, yeah, that's our doorbell going. But
okay.
We've got some structural problems happening at the artery. So someone's coming here to have a look and help us deal with it. Take the next step.
All right.
Anyway, someone did get the door. But you're awesome is what I'm saying. And in terms of the getting to the States, it just hasn't been a high priority because I've had so many other things. So that's a maybe. And I can invite you to some hot springs up here. And because, yeah, that's definitely something I want to do this summer is to go to some of the more natural hot springs because there's so many around here. Do you guys
How far away would it be a drive from your place?
Depends on what we go to. I know that near Pemberton, so just past Whistler, Whistler's about an hour 20, an hour and a half from here. So it'd be a couple hour drive.
That's not bad at all. I mean, I do that getting into Seattle almost, 2-3 times a month.
Yeah. So anyway, I have a dream for some hot spring action. Maybe you can bring Ronnie.
Yeah, that would be fun. We have
Yeah.
to figure out what to do with the puppies, though. Actually, you don't have a cat anymore, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, my cat won't eat your dogs now.
I'll have to get the puppies their passports.
Do they need any documentation to travel?
I think they need documentation that they're all current on their shots. Otherwise, it can get difficult to get across the border.
Right. Okay.
But mine are all current on their shots, so that shouldn't be
Yeah,
a
of
problem.
course. Good. Yeah. Well, let's make something happen. And yes, I still definitely want to deal with crossing the border, but
Hey, but by the way,
yeah.
I don't know if you heard, but May 19th, I'm back in London. And if you're going to be in the Netherlands there, I wonder if you guys could take a short hop across the channel there.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. That's about, yeah. Well, good to know. I mean, I'd love to see you. It's not that expensive to go and take a flight there.
And I usually go the previous weekend. So I'll probably fly Friday or Saturday and arrive Saturday or Sunday. And the meeting is the 19th, which I think is a Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. So we spend Monday preparing. So as long as we can do something that Friday or Saturday,
that'd be awesome.
preferably in London, maybe even Sunday, but the second half of Sunday would be harder. But all the way up till Sunday morning, which is essentially what I did last year, in Gießen.
Right.
So that might be a good thing to try this time.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds awesome. I know that Harry has some work in Moscow that's likely happening. I don't know when that sits, but knowing your dates is great because then we can kind of.
Yeah. So if you could pencil that in, let's talk it up. I'm going to try and get Heiner out there. Who else? Jeswinder, Anna.
Yeah.
Maybe Daniel.
Gertrude. And Rolf. Yeah, that would be, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. We'll see.
And then you and Harry. And maybe Fleming. That'll be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Scheming. Okay.
So just before you go,
yes.
what are the 15, 30 seconds that may have been notable out of today's unblocking that I missed? For you?
Well, I came in as what I think I witnessed is just different perspectives of talking about something. Same thing as always, in a way, of the different ways we word things. So what I heard was that there are taboos that we don't talk about. And it's coming from a nuanced perspective because I didn't hear the first part of the conversation. But Amanda had been to a talk, and it was about democracy and peace. And she was talking about how, peace is not a cessation of war, or what did she use? It's when we talk about it, we often talk about it from the perspective of a fear of violence, but that's not what peace is. Peace is much deeper than that. And there were several perspectives, but I really felt that what she was saying needed to be lifted up because we don't talk about taboos, and we don't, there's a natural or a whatever. Those are difficult to talk about, so to name them and learn how to be in conversation with them is important. So that's my takeaway. That's what I heard and what I kind of took away from it.
It's a good subject.
It is. Yeah. So anyhow, dude's here. I'm going to go help. You're awesome. And
missed you also, Tammy. So let's reconnect soon.
Yeah, we will. Let's have a real hang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.